Paul is not coming. We know Mike is not coming. Jackie, okay, yeah. Yeah, we got some. Yeah, we're all here. Ready?
Come back. How are you?
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nobody took a knee. That was nice. No knees.
Thank you all for coming this evening. Mr. Leon and Mr. Fufalia are excused. Item on the agenda is a moment of silence for Marie A. McCaffrey, a retired employee of the North Syracuse Central School District, and Neil H. Zinsmeyer, a graduate and retired employee of the district. Thank you. Next item, presentations. Superintendent's speech will present students from Gillette Road Middle School with the New York State School Boards Association 2017 Be the Change for Kids Innovation Award.
Okay, we want to try to speak into the mic so that the people watching at home can hear what a great story this is. So this summer, I received a phone call that we had won an award. And it was a mystery to us for a while because it was summer and some people weren't around and we weren't sure what this award was for. But we were very excited because we were told New York State School Boards Association chose students at Gillette Road Middle School. They were one of 3 districts in all of the state. 50 applicants, 50 different districts throughout the state had applied for this award. And these folks up here are one of 3 that got an award. And we're going to share a little bit about that tonight. It's called the it's for exploring computer science, and it's called Be the Change for Kids Award ceremony. And Ms. Erin McDonald and I traveled last week to Albany, and there was 10 students and the adults that are here. They went along with us, and they had an amazing, amazing tour that we're going to take you through in a moment with a slideshow. But before we do that, I'd like the students to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Ian Leahy. I was a part of the Gillette Road Middle School Coding Club from last year in 6th grade.
I'm Matthew Jordan. I was part of the coding club, and last year I was in 5th grade.
I'm Allison Frank, and I'm from Gillette Road Middle School, and I was in the coding club last year when I was in 6th grade.
I'm Mia Hui, and I was in the coding club last year.
Thank you, kids. And at the end of this, we're going to ask you, so I want you to be thinking of something. We're going to ask you to share one thing that was exciting or that you learned in the coding club, or one thing that you really liked the best on the tour last week, okay? So you can be thinking about that. And we have Principal Chris Lay here. We have Shannon Knapp and Steve Bacon, who are the teachers involved in this. And I want to thank Shannon for at the very last minute sending in the application so that we could be considered for this award. So I'm going to turn it over to the group, and they're going to just present a little bit of the tour from last week.
Last spring, Shannon Knapp had a great idea. She said, computer coding's really trendy right now in schools with technology. Why don't we try something in our school with that? So she found online a thing, CS First, which Google puts out. It's Computer Science First, and it's a program of 8 weeks that students could go through and learn how to do some basic coding. So they had a choice of 8 different themes. We put a group of students last year, got together, 5th, 6th, 7th graders, and they came twice a week, in some cases for 8 weeks. In addition to that, we were fortunate to get also some robots because we want to do some robotic activities. And Spheros is a company that actually makes small balls that are all kind of like gyroscopes. You can program the balls and they can move around and the lights turn on, and we're getting them to use them for critical thinking, how to use them, to go around a maze or to stop at a point, come backwards, and so forth. So the students also had a chance to use those last spring in addition to the computer science. But we thought it was important not to spend too much time in front of a screen, so came up with another activity called an unplugged activity. Same things again, dealing with technology, dealing with critical thinking, problem solving, but instead of using a computer and screen, we placed pieces of paper on the floor, and the students would have to do paper types of activity that would mimic the problem solving skills that they use for computer science. But the best part about this, people were shocked when they came in and saw a library full of students and you could hear a pin drop. They were very engaged. They had their headphones on. Occasionally they'd stop and exchange things with each other. But it really was amazing to watch students who just spent all day in school, spend another hour in the afternoon doing these types of activities and being engaged and just thrilled to be there. And this was our trip last Wednesday to Albany.
Mr. Lady, before you share what's leaning against the wall over there, let's hear from the kids for a minute. So come on back up. Can you think of one thing that you'd like to share? Either something you learned last year that you thought was really cool or a favorite thing that you learned when we toured the Nano Center. So come on over, because you have to speak into the microphone. People at home are able to watch this. And you can go home later and watch it on our website, too.
Favorite part of going to Albany for the tour was seeing the printer that they use to make very small lines, as in cutting your hair in small pieces.
Thank you. It was pretty amazing.
So my favorite part was when we actually just started off and learning like the basics of creating games for a website and how to actually program characters in it.
Thank you.
My favorite part of the tour was when we saw the robots delivering stuff.
I knew you were going to say that. It was really amazing.
I think my favorite part of the trip was the plates. It was really
The plates with the chips, do you remember what they called them? Wafer. Close. A W word that is something you can eat, only the wafers that we saw you couldn't eat. Okay, and now we have the unveiling of what this award is. It wasn't just recognition. This award came with a very big check. So come on over, kids, and help Mr. Lay hold this up.
So again, this is a lot of kind of support from each other. All the pilots that end up result is, though, is we have, I think it's two, the names are full now. As much as the check itself. Seed money for podium club. This is a one. They give kids what they need. Thank you all.
Did you want to show the sign that they sent us back with as well?
Part of it was that the real world computer science, they work with IBM and and they're the ones that look for shared, but it was really neat, you know, it wasn't just that it was program is valuable. This program recognized for what they've done for the other track to continue with. And it was a thrill to be to celebrate that. So thank you.
And thank all of you. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, comments from the audience. We have no one who has signed up this evening to speak. 4A, Board of Education Committee reports or comments.
I'd like to make a comment.
Anyone?
I want to congratulate you guys. Part of the trip was to see outside the box. They take risks. You educators think outside the box, take risks, keep it going. Keep plugging at it. It was very successful, and I'm very proud to be part of it. Stand up.
Good, thank you. Anybody else? Board of Ed comments. Superintendent comments.
Just a couple things. Not quite as exciting as the achievement of this group of students here, but sometimes behind the scenes, very boring kinds of audits and reports go on. And our Office of Human Resources, once again, I've lost count how many years in a row. 12. Okay, thank you. Mr. Nephew went back and counted. For 12 years in a row, Debbie Shunk, who has been the one in the Human Resources Office to complete what's known as a civil service audit. This means every civil service employee's records match up with payroll and all kinds of tedious paperwork. 12 years in a row, perfect audit. So we thank her and we thank your office for that work.
Well done.
The only other thing I want to mention, I'm amazed at how well our sports teams are doing this season. That certainly is worth celebrating. And we have a big football game coming up Friday night with two top-ranked teams, CNS versus Baldwinsville. So we hope to see a lot of you there.
Yeah. Routine action items, 5A, B, and C. 5A, consideration of approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Ed of September 25, 2017. B, consideration of the classification and school placement of disabled students certified by the District Committee on Special Ed for 9/25/17. And C, consideration of classification and placement of students in home instruction programs as recommended by the Home Instruction Review Committee, 9/25/17. Is there a motion to take and approve 5A, B, and C as a group? Mr. Leone, Mr. Harrington, all in favor. Discussion action items, 6A. Recommendation to create a 1.0 FTE teaching assistant at KWS Bear Road Elementary School. Ms. Speech, any comment on that?
Just to say that we had a student move in to the district who requires a one-on-one teaching assistant, and so therefore we need the addition.
Okay, so the motion is the following position be and hereby is created effective October 3, 2017. 1.0 FTE teaching assistant at KWS Bear Road Elementary. Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Scanlon, Ms. Owens, all in favor. B, adoption of the 2018-19 budget process timeline and budget calendar. Any comment on that, or Don? No, Don. Please do.
I think Don's going to share that. While he's doing that, there is one other thing that I want to mention. So can I back up to Superintendent's comments?
Yeah.
I really want to thank the people in the community that came out to support the referendum last week. We're pretty excited that we can finally fix some leaking roofs and the sad tennis court at the junior high, so our teams can begin using that again, as well as people in the community. So thank you, all the people that came out to vote.
Don?
I just wanted to take folks through the calendar, and I won't, there's many line items in this very detailed process, but a few that are worth noting. As you remember, you folks just accepted the audit report from our auditors, and that gives us a baseline as we look at the financial condition of the district. Tonight you'll approve the calendar, and our next big milestone event will be on December 4th. We'll be looking at our budget assumptions for the 18-19 school year, and we'll be looking at where we stand with our fund balance for 17-18. And then going on to the later in December, we're going to start to look at some preliminary budget forecast information, and we'll be working with BOCES on completing our initial budget and making requests for that budget to BOCES so they can start working up their numbers. And then in mid-January, this is kind of where the action starts. We get the governor's budget proposal. We update our fund balance and reserve projections, and we'll do our first preliminary tax cap calculation. And this is when you can see that the activities that follow are pretty meaty. We're having very detailed discussions with our principals and directors about their staffing needs, and we're looking more closely at our BOCES budget and working some of the details of the budget out so that we can come to the board on February 26th with our initial budget draft. And this is a pretty good document that basically says this is what we think next year will look like, pending final state aid from Albany. And then the process will proceed to March 19th, where we'll finalize our tax cap calculation. We'll talk about buses. We'll update you on the budget and all the goings on in Albany as far as we can decipher them. And with hopes that on April 2nd, we'll know our final, usually with the fiscal year ending March 31st, the budget, the final legislative process where the governor and the legislature agree on a budget happens around March 31st, and we hope to be able to come to you with the budget proposal on April 2nd with that final state aid and ask the board to adopt that budget. We'll, on the 16th, we'll look at our BOCES administrative budget and get you folks to hopefully approve that. We'll have our budget hearing on May 1st, and then the budget vote on May 15th. And I know all of this seems awfully early to be talking about on October 2nd, but it's a meaty process. As you can see, we just went through 4 pages of action items that we'll be going through over the next several months to put a good budget together for next year. Any questions or comments on that process?
I think it's great to start now because we know that you start before now anyway. So, but I guess my question is that subcommittee that is listed on here, there's typically 4 board reps on there. Will that be open to some of us that are not on the committee but might be available on those particular dates?
So, yes, Patrick, we've determined, the board has determined who's going to serve on which committees this year. We can only have a maximum of 4 attend the meetings, but we'll handle that the same way we have in the past. So if 4 people who are on the committee can't attend, then we will kind of circulate those of you who are not technically on the subcommittee in, so that we'll always have 4 and we'll always be able to keep people.
And I think it might be helpful to just note, if you see, and thanks for mentioning that, Patrick, because I didn't talk about that. Usually before each board meeting, we kind of have these budget subcommittee meetings. So most of what's talked about in those meetings end up being content in the actual board presentation for the next meeting. So, but that's an important part of the process. We really appreciate the opportunity to brainstorm with the board as we develop the budget and that we bring forward to the public. Any other questions?
Other questions for Don?
Thank you.
Thanks, Don. So the motion is to approve the 2018-19 budget process timeline and budget calendar. Mr. Leon, Mr. Maurizio, all in favor? C, acknowledgement of appointment of impartial hearing officer pursuant to Part 200 of the regulations of the Commissioner of Education. The motion is to acknowledge the appointment of Jerome Shad as impartial hearing officer pursuant to Part 200 of the regulations of the Commissioner of Education. Motion to approve. Mr. Sabota, Ms. Owens, all in favor? Retirements. There's two of them, if I can get it to come up here. Here we go. Oops. There we go. Norma Craven, custodial worker 1 at Roxborough Road Middle School, retires with 27 and a half years of service. And Ann Bush, special education teacher at KWS Bear Road Elementary School, retires with 22 years of service. So we wish both of them a long and happy and healthy retirement. 7A, instructional personnel. Are there any questions, any need for discussion on instructional personnel? 7B, support staff personnel. Any need for discussion? Okay, we'll take a motion to approve the personnel items as presented. Scanlon, Ms. Owens, all in favor? Motion for executive session. For the purpose of reviewing the employment record of one individual and to receive an update on 4 legal matters relative to potential litigation with action to follow on a personnel matter. Is there such a motion? Mr. Leon, Ms. McDonald, all in favor? We'll ask the seniors to come forward with your sheets to sign.